Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you love powerful voices, unforgettable music, and the incredible journeys behind the artists you admire, then you're in the right place. Today we're diving into something truly special. We're going to explore the journey of Il Volo, but not from the usual perspective you've probably heard before. Today we're looking at the story through the eyes of one of its most passionate members, Ignazio Boschetto. His perspective on the group's rise, their struggles, their brotherhood, and their dreams reveals something deeper than fame or success. It reveals the heart of what it means to grow up in front of the world while carrying the responsibility of a musical legacy. Before we jump into the story, let me ask you something. Have you ever watched a group of artists perform and wondered what their journey really looked like behind the stage lights? Not the polished interviews or the glamorous concerts, but the real moments that shaped them. Because sometimes the truth behind success is far more emotional, surprising, and inspiring than what we see on the surface. For Ignazio, the journey began long before the world knew the name Il Volo. He was just a teenager with an enormous voice and an even bigger dream. Growing up in Sicily, music was not just entertainment, it was a way of life. Songs filled family gatherings, celebrations, and quiet evenings. Like many Italian households, music carried history, emotion, and identity. But even as a young boy, Ignazio knew that his relationship with music was different. He didn't just enjoy it, he lived inside it. When Ignazio later reflected on the early days, he often described music as something that felt natural, almost inevitable. Singing wasn't a decision he made one day. It was something that seemed to be part of him from the beginning. Still, having a beautiful voice and building a career around it are two very different things. The moment that changed everything came during the television competition that would unknowingly create one of the most successful classical crossover groups in the world. That moment happened on the Italian show Ti lascio una canzone. It was meant to highlight young vocal talents, but nobody could have predicted that three teenage boys with extraordinary voices would step onto that stage and spark something magical. Alongside Ignazio were Piero Baroni and Gianluca Ginobili. At first, they were simply competitors. Each of them came from different parts of Italy, each with their own personality and musical style. Ignazio later recalled that none of them expected what would happen next. When producers and mentors realized how beautifully their voices blended together, they suggested something unusual. Instead of competing against each other, why not perform as a trio? Think about that moment for a second. Imagine being a teenager chasing your individual dream and suddenly being asked to share that dream with two other strangers. Would you feel excited, nervous, protective of your own spotlight? For Ignazio, it was a mixture of all those emotions. But the moment they sang together, something clicked instantly. Their voices didn't compete. They complemented each other. From Ignazio's perspective, that first collaboration felt like discovering a new dimension of music. Singing solo was powerful, but singing as part of a trio created something larger than any individual voice. It was harmony not just in sound, but in spirit. The name Il Volo, which means the flight, would eventually symbolize their rise. But in those early days, it was more about trust than ambition. Ignazio has often described how strange and exciting it felt to suddenly share his musical path with Piero and Gianluca. They were young, inexperienced, and suddenly facing opportunities that even seasoned performers dream about. Their lives changed almost overnight when the legendary producer Tony Renis recognized their potential. For Ignazio, meeting Renis felt like stepping into a new world. Here was someone who believed not only in their voices, but in the idea that classical music could connect with modern audiences in a powerful way. Soon the trio found themselves traveling beyond Italy, performing on international stages, and recording music that blended operatic tradition with contemporary emotion. But behind the excitement, Ignazio often reflects on how overwhelming those early years truly were. Imagine being a teenager suddenly flying across the world, performing for thousands of people, and representing a centuries-old musical tradition. That's the reality Ignazio and his bandmates faced. The name Il Volo quickly became associated with a new wave of classical crossover music. Their first album introduced them to audiences who had never experienced opera-inspired vocals in such an accessible way. Ignazio has often said that one of the greatest joys of the group's journey has been watching young listeners discover classical-style singing for the first time. But success also came with challenges. Ignazio's perspective on those challenges reveals just how complex the journey really was. Fame arrived quickly, and with it came pressure. Critics questioned whether three young singers could truly sustain such powerful music. Some people dismissed them as a novelty rather than serious artists. For Ignazio, those doubts became motivation. Instead of letting criticism discourage them, the trio used it as fuel to work harder. They studied their craft more deeply, improved their technique, and focused on building performances that proved their dedication to music. One of the defining moments in their journey came when they performed at the prestigious Sanremo Music Festival. Winning the competition with their song Grande Amore was not just a victory for the group. From Ignazio's perspective, it was a moment when years of effort, growth, and belief finally came together. Standing on that stage, hearing the audience erupt in applause, Ignazio later described feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the success, but for the path that had led them there. But what makes Ignazio's perspective so fascinating is how often he returns to the idea of brotherhood. When people talk about Il Volo, they usually focus on the music. Ignazio often talks about the friendship behind the music. Think about it. Spending years traveling together, rehearsing together, performing together, and growing up in front of millions of fans can either strengthen relationships or break them apart. For Ignazio, the bond between the three singers became the foundation of everything. He has shared stories about long nights on tour buses, endless rehearsals, and the quiet moments backstage before a performance when nerves and excitement collide. Those are the moments when the trio remembers why they started. From Ignazio's perspective, the journey of Il Volo is not just about success, it's about resilience. It's about three young singers learning how to navigate fame without losing the passion that brought them together. Over the years, they have performed on some of the world's most prestigious stages. They've collaborated with legendary artists, recorded albums that reached international audiences, and built a fan base that spans continents. Yet Ignazio often speaks about how important it is to stay connected to their roots. No matter how big the stage becomes, he believes the heart of their music must remain authentic. One of the things fans love most about Ignazio is his energy. While Piero often carries a powerful dramatic presence and Gianluca brings smooth elegance, Ignazio's personality adds warmth and humor to the trio. He's known for his playful interactions with audiences, his passion for music beyond classical genres, and his ability to bring a sense of joy to performances that might otherwise feel overly formal. From Ignazio's point of view, that balance is crucial. Classical music has sometimes been seen as distant or intimidating, but Il Volo's mission has always been to bring emotion and accessibility to the genre. They want audiences to feel the music, not just admire it. And if you've ever watched one of their performances, you know exactly what that feels like. When the three voices rise together in harmony, something powerful happens. It's more than technical skill. It's emotion, history, and passion all coming together in a single moment. Ignazio often says that every performance feels like telling a story. Some nights the story is joyful, some nights it's nostalgic, some nights it's deeply emotional. But every night the goal is the same, to connect with the audience. As the years passed, the trio matured not only as performers, but as individuals. Ignazio has spoken openly about how growing up in the spotlight forced him to learn lessons quickly. Responsibility, discipline, and humility became essential parts of their journey. And yet, despite all the changes, Ignazio still describes the group's journey as something magical. Because at the end of the day, it all began with three teenagers singing together on a television stage. When Ignazio looks back on the journey today, he often talks about gratitude. Gratitude for the fans who believed in them from the beginning, gratitude for the mentors who guided them, and gratitude for the chance to carry Italian music across the world.